I'm Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. Welcome to this Sunday evening. I went old school on you tonight. Did you notice? I went old school on you tonight. And the reason is I could have thought of no better person to have on this evening than my good friend, Josh Ritter. Those of you that know him probably have seen him all over YouTube, all over Fox. This guy, I mean, you've probably seen him at the post office as well, up on the wall over there, because the feds have been looking for him for quite some time, along with myself. But Josh is a former LA prosecutor, spent many years in the LA District Attorney's office, and now he has his own private practice as a defense attorney. But more importantly than that, he's not only helping those who cannot help themselves, the indigenous and those who can't afford legal representation, but he has a really amazing YouTube channel, and it's called Courtroom Confidential. If you have not seen his interview style and or his channel, I want to tell all of my subscribers to get over there and hit that subscribe and like button, and hit the bell. Make sure you hit the bell so you always get his updates, because he's got some really amazing content. So that's a short bio on Mr. Joshua Ritter. And I want to thank him so much for his time showing up here tonight. Josh, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, please. Thank you. I've been looking forward to this. I appreciate you having me on, especially for what the topic we're going to discuss tonight. Pretty heady stuff, but I appreciate that you feel like I'm up to the task. Yeah, thank you so much. Can I say too, before we get started, that intro video that you have, that is so badass. I love that thing so much. It's so great. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting everybody to check out the channel. I hope they do.
They will. They most definitely will. We have amazing subscribers over here, which they're right alongside of your folks. And there's, what's really always fascinated me about our adventure here on YouTube is how smart everybody is.
Yeah.
They blow me away. And of course, our mods over here on the interview room, Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Mimi J2, Teresa M, and Laura Waddle. We cannot do this without you. Karen and I are always eternally grateful for each and every one of you. And our members, our subscribers, and our Patreon members, of course, we thank you from the bottom of our heart for your generosity and helping us to move forward. So crazy things in the world tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about crime in America. And I thought Josh and I mean, we're a good yin and yang here. It would be really neat to have, a conversation in the backdrop now of Charlie Kirk's assassination, the stabbing death of this Ukrainian woman in North Carolina on the train, in Charlotte, and just with all the other stuff that's taking place in the world today, not only in this country, but internationally. But crime in America, people, I think, are feeling that things are getting out of hand potentially. And, they feel like their daily lives and the sense of safety are affected. And so one of the biggest challenges with crime is the increase in violent types of crime. And what does that mean to the numbers, i.e., and or law enforcement and the court systems? Josh is going to approach this, from his experience, not only at the LA DA's office, but in the court system that he finds himself in today. Currently, from my perspective in law enforcement, police departments are understaffed. They're underfunded. They're making through a tough time as the perception of crime rates are rising. Now, whether or not that's a real perception or not, that's one of the things we want to talk about with you guys out there in the chat. How are you feeling about it? And so because they're understaffed, they're having a tough time trying to keep up with things. The opioid crisis is out there. That's having a huge impact on municipalities and our culture and our society as a whole. So there's a lot going on here that we're going to unpack this evening. And so I want to kick it off with some of the crime statistics that have been going on here in the United States. And Josh, you tell me about your career, or tell our audience a little bit about your career at the LA District Attorney's Office, and then you're working on the defense side right now, and what's the dynamics of the two?
Sure. Yeah, I joined the LA District Attorney's Office right out of law school. I actually was a law clerk while I was still in law school. It's funny enough, it was not a career that I had planned for myself. I didn't go to law school, in other words, with the idea of becoming a DA. I kind of fell into it, but then I fell in love with it. And it was one of the most fulfilling careers I've ever had, being a district attorney. I really enjoyed it. The people who worked there, at least at the time I was there, were incredibly enthusiastic. They were very good attorneys. We all had this kind of very clear mission of trying to do right and public service and protect our communities. And I really loved it. And I only left not because I got tired of the job, but because it is government work. As you know, working for the government, that can kind of begin to wear on you. You begin to feel a little bit like a cog in a larger machine. And, I wanted to kind of do some other things with my life and take on different challenges. And I'm not going to say that money wasn't a part of that too. I wanted to build a family and everything else. And they do not pay you all that well, at least in the DA's office in LA. So just being honest, that was part of it. But it was really a struggle for me to leave, because you start to feel like, how could I possibly do this type of work for the other side, quote unquote? How could I defend these people, quote unquote? And then I quickly became disabused of that and realized that being a lawyer is just really advocating on behalf of your client, whether your client's the people of the state of California or your client's a person who's accused of a crime. And I quickly realized that a lot of people get arrested and accused of crimes who are not, quote unquote, criminals. And a lot of them are very good folks like you or I that have just made a colossal mistake or got caught up in a really bad situation and they just need help. And many of these people have become friends of mine, and they went to my wedding. Some of these people, I'm not talking about representing gang members and serial killers. I'm talking about representing people who just kind of goofed up at one point in their life. And I found this part of my career also incredibly fulfilling, but it's also opened up opportunities to do stuff like this. I never could have gone on YouTube as a prosecutor. Right. So just even having the opportunity to do this. And if I could say too, just to kind of our point for this evening, you talked about understaffed. I'll just give you a small anecdote to kind of describe that for folks. When I entered the DA's office, they would open up hiring, and they might open up hiring for 40 slots of people, 60 slots. They're going to hire 40 new DAs that year. Big, by the way, the LA District Attorney's Office is the largest prosecutorial agency in the world. They're huge. LA County is enormous, and they handle all of the felonies and most of the misdemeanors in LA. So they have a very, very large office. So they would hire, say, 40 to 60 people, and they might get 1,200 applicants for that. I mean, it was incredibly competitive. Everybody wanted to work for that office. Now they cannot get enough applicants for even those 40 or 60 slots. They might not be able to staff an entire hiring class of DAs. And that is because the enthusiasm to go into, I mean, it's a number of reasons, but the enthusiasm to go into public service, to go into law enforcement has dropped to all-time lows. You see it on the policing side of things too. Trying to recruit people to become police officers is at an all-time low. So these police departments are incredibly understaffed. The prosecutorial offices are incredibly understaffed. I mean, I still have many good friends who are still in the DA's office, and all of them are overwhelmed. I mean, all of the courtrooms are understaffed and they don't have enough people. And that starts to have a trickle-down effect to prosecuting less crimes, giving far more lenient offers on things than they might have. And that has an overall effect on safety. So just one kind of, in the multifaceted issue, there's one facet is, like you said, just the understaffing of law enforcement and prosecutors' offices.
Oh, I understand you. Yeah, for sure. What year did you get sworn in, and when to the DA's office?
Yeah, I
not that I'm
testing your memory. No. I think it was 2008 or 2009. I can't remember. And then I left about close to 10 years after that, but I had worked as in the DA's office for a few years before I even got hired as a law clerk. So I had been there for just over 10 years, I think, by the time I left.
And when you were you downtown, or what office were you in?
I got when you first get assigned as a DA, they ship you all over. And I went to an assignment in downtown, and then way out in a community called El Monte. You're familiar with the area. Then I was in East LA for a short period of time, but then most of my career was in downtown LA. So
in East LA, that was a combat zone, right?
Oh yeah.
Because there you were dealing with South Central, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, and it was kind of the Wild West, and there was definitely a perception that the DA's office does not control that courtroom. So it felt like going into enemy territory for sure.
You know, I got my buddy and I came up one night to go to watch a Kings game, and we were in a red Hyundai and we got lost. And I, like an idiot, he pulls into a gas station and he says, "Get out and get some directions," because we couldn't find the Coliseum. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "You're in a red Hyundai. Look at all the graffiti on the walls over here. I'm not getting out of this.
Get us out of here."
Idiot. And anyway, made it to the game, but that was kind of an interesting situation. Hey, so let's talk a little bit about some of in your perceptions and your experience as a whole. What are some of the things? How much is mental health playing a role in today's criminal justice system?
Yeah, I mean, it's playing a huge role. You have law enforcement people being tasked with, they're trained to handle bad guys and to handle very volatile situations. They're not trained to handle people going through a mental health crisis. But who else is going to do that job? Because those situations can turn incredibly violent and very quickly. So they try their best to handle those situations. And then on the custody side of it, where are you going to put these folks? You have many people who are living on the streets. They're suffering from drug addiction. They're suffering from mental health issues, and they might commit very minor crimes. And so they might go into custody for a few days, and then where do you put them? But they release them back to the street. And then it creates this vicious cycle of them committing more crimes. Maybe those crimes become more violent. When they really do need help, they need to go into treatment. They need to go into either, substance abuse treatment or mental health treatment. And we don't have a system set up anymore. We used to have state hospitals many, many years ago, and we don't have that anymore.
Reagan took that out.
Right. And so now where do we put these people? Well, the jails have kind of become a proxy for that. But if somebody isn't being held for a crime, they're being released to the street, and it's a constant, revolving door. But it's a big part of it, and it's a problem that I don't think is addressed thoroughly enough. We talk about homelessness as if it's completely a housing issue, and it really, some of that is part of the problem, and some of it's just mental health problems, but we no longer have the infrastructure set up to handle those problems.
Do you think that because there is a mental health crisis, simultaneously with, the lack of funding for agencies and et cetera, I mean, it goes on. I mean, the court system's struggling, the jail system's struggling, they're struggling. I mean, the folks on the street, with the economic impacts, how much of that do you think is driving some of the cultural, social type of struggles that are taking place out there? I mean, let's talk about the narcotics problem as a whole. You're seeing a lot of clients, I'm sure, with addiction problems, with et cetera. But so walk our audience a little bit through that. Help them understand what the bigger picture is, perhaps.
Yeah, it's, to call it an epidemic is probably the best way to categorize it. It really is like a widespread disease that we don't have an adequate cure for now, and it continues to spread and continues to get worse. And again, you're using a very blunt tool like law enforcement to try to solve it. There's the old analogy of, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, law enforcement's a hammer, and it's used to handling crime. It's not used to handling things like substance abuse and things like mental health, and yet they're the only ones tasked with handling that. So then you get a lot of people who are doing jail time, prison time, being arrested for, if we want to keep the subject to substance abuse, and these people, others look at it, legislators look at it, and they go, "Hey, why are we punishing these people who really just have drug addiction issues?" Well, that's not right. Well, we don't want to fill up our prisons with people who are just simply dealing with drug issues. And I understand that, and I agree with that. Well, then legislatures who have no understanding of boots on the ground, what they're dealing with, they start meddling around with the laws, and they start passing. Here in California, we're under the proposition system, and they start passing all these propositions to reduce sentences on drug crimes and petty thefts and things like that, thinking they're going to solve this overpopulation of our prisons. And yeah, it does solve that. But then again, where are all these people going? The underlying issues still exist, and these people are still addicted to drugs, and they still need to get money for that. So they're still committing crimes, and petty crimes turn into greater crimes, and that turns into violence. And then it starts to snowball. And now what you're seeing in California is a lot of people looking to undo some of that recent legislation, because the pendulum has swung so dramatically the other way that people don't want to live like this.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And I obviously, whenever there's a addiction / mental health issue, then a lot of times, if the mental health problem is so out of touch, for lack of a better term, they do engage in destructive and potentially violent behavior. And a lot of times they can't help it. I mean, because they don't really know, what's going on here. I mean, we've been dealing with that. I was lucky because when I started in California in 1982, a couple of weekends ago, my career was 82 to 07. So I was actually retired when you were kicking off. And, we had the luxury of a 72-hour hold on a 5150. You could roll them up to the hospital, and they would do the evaluations, et cetera. And when Reagan, took that out, I think it was like 1989. I mean, there was a huge shift. And to your point, yeah, the jail system then started becoming our mental health facilities, which was a huge mistake, because you're 100% right. Law enforcement, started just dropping them off at the jail, with, maybe a 647F or something like that, and let them, you guys handle it for the evening just to get them out of the cities. And then, of course, Gates comes in late 80s and creates all the crash teams and says, hey, by the way, we're going to now deal with the gang problem at the same time. And they start pushing everything south into Orange and San Diego County where we were. And so we ended up catching all of that stuff as well. And it really turned into a shift in our culture for law enforcement, and I think for the court system as well. I don't know if you remember, there was a study, it was called Gangs 2000. Anyway, what it was the feds were asked to step in to Department of Justice in California and say, hey, work with us. We want to create a study and prepare the court system, the juvenile court system specifically, for the potential future here. And what they did is they went around and they went to like 4 or 5 war-torn countries and started interviewing youth in those countries. And they started taking those behavioral aspects of those kids. And then they came back to the U.S. and they went to Chicago, LA, et cetera. Okay. And they overlaid the data. And they discovered that the kids in these, like Los Angeles, South Central, and all the other places, the kids that you were dealing with, right? They were having the same mental post-traumatic stress as being in a war-torn country. I mean, where a war is going on. And so what they did is they told the juvenile court system, hey, we need to start thinking a little, ahead of the curve here, because we think there's going to be an uptick in younger and younger offenders. Remember, you couldn't form the intent to commit a crime until you were 12 years old, if I in my day, right?
Yeah.
And today they've got kids. What's the youngest defendant, or what's the youngest juvenile that you've ever heard of that were committing like serious crimes? If you know.
No, I think it's around that age. I didn't personally handle, but everybody who goes through the DA's office at least when I was there, at one point you do an assignment in the juvenile system. You do an entire year. They pull you out of whatever felony assignment you're in, and they put you into juvie for a whole year. And it's, at first you kind of gripe about it, but then you realize you're really getting an education on these issues that we're talking about and where kind of crime starts to develop. And it is shocking. It is shocking, the crimes that are being committed by very, very young folks. And I feel like I do know, I had colleagues who were handling murder crimes by people as young as 12 and 13. Every crime you can think of, sex-based crimes, drug dealing, gang-based crimes. I handled a lot of young folks who were committing gang crimes as juveniles because it's, the gang culture sees it like they're putting in work for the OGs of the gang. They have them commit violent crimes because they know they're going to be part of the juvenile system and not punished in the same way. And it's horrific. And you can understand why they would be suffering from PTSD, to be exposed to that kind of violence and culture from a very, very young age. You start to almost take on this zombie-like personality just to survive your day-to-day life. It's tragically sad.
Yeah. We used to, in the Cold Case Foundation, when we train law enforcement officers, new officers coming into homicide, that kind of thing, we write up on the board, 58,000 times 10, 10 years, or divided by 10. And that was the number of deaths in the Vietnam War. And then we would write 19 to 23,000 times 1, okay, times 10. And that, 230,000. And that's, the FBI statistics in relationship to how many violent homicides occur annually in the United States of America, 18,000 to 23,000 back in the day. And that's like 230,000. So it's almost like 4 times the amount of dead folks for the same amount of period as the Vietnam War. And then we asked the class, where is the war? Where is the war? Which is kind of a segue into, I'm really excited that you're here, because it's a great conversation to have about, where we're at as, culturally, right? With the recent shooting and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We want to talk about that little piece. But there was a recent Rutgers University study. And in this study, I'm just going to paraphrase it here. They found widespread justification for violence, including assassination. I know you've read the study. When you hear that, what goes through your mind?
You sent this to me and I read through it. And I'll admit, I'm not some sort of academic that spends his spare time reading studies, but it was fascinating and chilling to me. And they did, I feel like, a really thorough and objective job with this whole thing. But their conclusions are essentially that we are living in very unique times. And because the normalization of this type of violence is growing, and that they feel that there has been some sort of sea shift in that people, they blame some of it on the internet and social media. They blame some of it on just kind of our political rhetoric. But that it's this idea that the study found that a shocking amount of people, I think it was overall, hold on, I have it right here, that overall, of everybody polled, and they tried to make sure that it was a mix of political backgrounds, that 38% of those polled felt that violence against the president would be somewhat justified.
Wow.
Not one of the answers was never justified, but anything above that was somewhat justified. And you've got 38% of people from a wide range of politics feeling that way about it. That's shocking. That takes your breath away, that the simple concept of saying violence against a person because of their politics is not acceptable, is not how somehow a across the board sentiment, is really shocking. But they go into trying to figure out why that is, and why does that seem to be rising. And they talk a lot about, and it's funny, this report came out prior to Charlie Kirk. And that's what's chilling about it. They're talking about how it's getting worse, and they published this before probably one of the most demonstrative examples of this study. But they talk a lot about the assassination attempt against President Trump. They talk about the assassination against the United Healthcare CEO by Luigi Mangione. And just, and we see the reaction to
whether or not they should take Musk out, Elon Musk,
the kind of perceived acceptance of violence against him. They even talk about, maybe we're not talking about violence, but how about just vandalism and destruction of property, and the amount of people who just felt, it's probably somewhat justified to burn down a Tesla dealership because you feel like Elon Musk deserves it, and it just takes your breath away.
And if anybody's wondering, you can do two things. You can Google Rutgers study assassination, and it will come up, or we're going to have it also in the link below after our conversation this evening. One of the other very, very interesting pieces of this, they tried to establish what the mental capacity was of those who were, kind of leaning towards a 38%. And they said 31% said it would be at least somewhat justified.
Yeah.
So, we're not saying we want to do it, but I could see why somebody would do it. And then if, what Josh was just talking about, 38%, it said, it would be okay. It would be okay. That is shocking.
It is. Well, and then we've seen it. I mean, in this recent response to Charlie Kirk being assassinated, being murdered in front of us, there's to me a shocking, and I'm only going anecdotally. I mean, I haven't seen if they've recently polled people, but just going anecdotally, there's a shocking amount of people who really feel like they're, to some extent, maybe he should have seen this coming, or maybe it's somewhat justified. And that's, I think, what this poll was trying to get at, that it's not like, we're not talking about people who are celebrating it, but we're talking about just people who are, well, I kind of get it. I kind of understand it. And you're sitting here going, hey, you may not have liked what this man had to say. You may have even hated what this man had to say, but he's a man with a wife and 2 children, and he lost his life. And you're saying that you kind of get it. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, did you get a chance to watch any of the memorial tonight?
I did watch some of it. It was incredible. I mean, they filled that entire stadium in Arizona, and then you're telling me there was a few 100,000 outside as well. Yeah. It's pretty incredible. And I guarantee you, a bunch of those people are not people who are going to rallies all the time. I bet you there was a lot of people there who, for the first time, decided to go to an event like that because they just felt something's wrong right now with our country.
Yeah, I agree with that 1,000%. And I think, the estimated numbers outside were around 200,000 and about 80,000 into that arena in itself. And, when this happened, 11, 12 days ago, it felt like a moment in time that was really going to define the next 10 years in our country. It's kind of a chilling effect for me, obviously, with grandkids, and our youngest is, and we just happened to be, Karen and I were on our way up to Dylan's college. Dylan goes up in Logan, which is Utah State, which is the next stop on his tour. So he had tickets to go watch the debates and stuff, and they're going to go up there still. And I told him, I said, hey, you need to, as they say in Hawaii, biakamai, just pay attention to what's going on around you, but stay in the back, stay up high, stay out of the way, listen to the debate right now. But where I was going with this was, we were on our way up there when this thing happened. He's recently engaged, and all the girls are going to go out and do all the, the wedding dress stuff with the new mother-in-law, who we love already. And so all the girls were getting together, and all of a sudden this thing happens at UVU. And we are literally in St. George when this thing goes down. And we're at a hotel in St. George. And Karen will tell you, and I shared it on your show. If you guys haven't seen me on Josh's show, I bored him a little bit over there. But and by the way, if you're just joining us, get over to Courtroom Confidential, hit that subscribe button, hit that like bell or the thumbs up and all that. Make sure you drive his numbers up, because he's got an amazing channel over there.
Thank you.
So we're in the hotel, this thing goes down, and I said to Karen, I said, the only luck I ever had as a homicide investigator was, man, I was always right there, or I could see something that nobody else was seeing, and it just kind of led me in the right direction. And she just looks at me, she goes, you have the best luck when it comes to, because, boom, we were off and running, and we were standing in front of his house, before anybody else, was around. There was only one journalist. There was one guy out across the street from the jail where they brought him the night before. Anyway, so I started hitting the phone in my contacts, and I started getting the 411 on how this thing was going down. And when I heard that the dad, and I'm wondering what your opinion is, the pain of the father who is seeing his son on TV and going, and the mom saw him first, right? And goes to dad and says, hey, that looks like Tyler. I mean, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that?
I'm glad you brought that up. I've thought about that long and hard. It's in these types of situations, I feel like kind of one of the victims that gets forgotten about is the family member of the person, of the suspect, because, we're also focused on the evil that he did. And it's like we feel bad even kind of mentioning any sort of sympathy for his family. But you're right. Think about this. Horrible assassination takes place. It's all over the news. They then release photographs of the suspect, and the mom, can you imagine the feeling inside of her chest when she looks at that photo and goes, "Oh my God, that looks like Tyler." And then she shows father. He says, "Oh my God, that looks like him too." And then they confront him. They go, "Where were you the last couple of days?" And he says, "I was sick." And that moment there really made me go, if you're a parent and you don't have any other reason to suspect your own child, you're taking that excuse and you're going, oh, good. Oh, okay. I can't believe I was that silly. I can't believe I actually suspected my own child. But that wasn't enough for them because they knew there was something wrong with the way he had been headed. And then the dad says, "Show me a picture of grandpa's gun." And he doesn't send a picture. They knew even despite his denials that he could have done something this horrific. I'm sure they never in a million years would have imagined it, but in that moment, they had doubts even when their son tried to provide them with some sort of excuse. So I feel so bad for what their family is going through. And the same thing for the Luigi Mangione, the Mangiones. If you can imagine that manhunt went on for weeks, and then pictures start coming out, and I'm wondering, are they thinking, "Holy, that looks like Luigi"? Mm-hmm. And then he gets arrested, and I'm sure that people are not going around thinking I'm raising someone who could commit a crime this horrific, and then they find out that their own wayward son had done this thing, and it's got to be awful. Something they'll carry for the rest of their lives.
What do you think about he's part of the group of kids that were hit during the COVID situation, right?
Yeah.
When Dylan, because Dylan's he's 21, he'll be 22 coming up, our youngest. And I remember him coming home. We were living in a different state, and he came home. He was in band. And by the way, his band was like 6th in the nation. Okay. They were really an amazing band. And we'd gone to Indianapolis and all this stuff. We did all the band stuff, right? And he comes home and he goes, "Dad," he goes, "they want me to wear a mask and cut a hole so I can play my mellophone." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah." And that's when we, Karen and I looked at each other and says, "Okay, time to go on the road." And that's when we sold our house and bought the Airstream. And we took them with us, and we visited the United States while, everybody else was running around with masks. Okay. And so we kind of dodged a bullet there. But I've seen a lot of these kids that fell deep into this isolation.
Yeah.
And into this online world. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how deep he went and started to separate himself from his family. What say you?
I think that COVID was a turning point for a trend that was already heading in a very bad direction, but I think it was like throwing gasoline on a fire. I agree with you. I think that this kind of internet culture that exists that some young folks, not all, but some, become so embroiled in is incredibly destructive. And it's not just us saying this. This Rutgers study talks a lot about that, and how you've got people who might already be suffering from mental health issues, loneliness, social ostracism, whatever else, and then they start to become really radicalized through these different social platforms. And they talk about things like Blue Sky and Reddit. And we know that the shooter of Charlie Kirk was heavily involved in Discord. And I think they start to get into these echo chambers where people, they don't talk in reality, and they're talking about, making big threats and talking about big things they're going to do. And you take a person like Tyler Robinson, and he starts to actually think this is real life. and then acts upon that. And I agree with you. I think it's again another huge epidemic problem that it's like I don't know how we start to solve this stuff, but I do see it as a problem.
I totally understand what you're saying, and isn't it interesting that I heard his mother give a interview where she was talking about how far, I don't know if it was his mother or if it was his partner's mother. Forgive me if I got that piece of it wrong, but either one, it was one of the moms of these boys. And she started talking about how it was so, and it may not have even been them. Now I'm thinking about it. Well, I think it was another kid that was part of that Discord community. And she was saying that, for the longest time, she tried to, self medicate the child through love and acceptance and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he kept getting pulled further and further away by older gentlemen. And she presented it in a way that her son was groomed into a certain thought process in these chat rooms, et cetera. And, again, that's again another cultural shift that I don't think the public, and you guys tell us in the chat here what you think. I don't know if the public quite understands the totality of how dangerous these dark webs areas can be, and how those who would perpetuate violence on children and or even young adults. And I would submit to you, when he's 17, 16, 17, 18, he's still trying to figure out what's going on in the world. And predators are taking advantage of that. Do you think that's anything jumps out at you about that?
Well, I mean, this blows my mind. They recover his rifle, and we've all heard now about the inscriptions on the bullet casings.
Right.
This young man was planning an assassination, and we're starting to get a better understanding of what may have motivated him to do that. But I think we can agree that he was trying to send some sort of message, that he had targeted Charlie Kirk for whatever he felt whatever Charlie Kirk's ideology was. And he wanted to put an end to that, send a message about that. But so he's deliberately planning this to have some ramification outside of just the murder itself, right? And he's sitting there inscribing these bullets, and he's not quoting Karl Marx or Che Guevara or even the Bible. He's quoting internet memes. Where are we? He's doing weird internet meme humor on these bullets. If you want to feel like, did this man go down some sort of dark rabbit hole that was inspired by the internet and this kind of weird culture that I think you and I are so kind of old and removed from, that we don't really are able to wrap our heads around it. But he was so embroiled in it that it is literally what's in his head as he's inscribing the bullets for a man that he's about to go out and assassinate. That just blows my mind.
Yeah. Does he really even know the totality of, Mussolini and fascism as a whole? I don't think I don't think they have the mental capacity based on, the totality of, and here's one of the reasons I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it out loud. It may or may not be a popular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. No, we're good. We're good. Well, I have the timeline on this guy. Okay. He stayed in that area. Remember the rifle that we were talking about here. The rifle belonged to his grandfather, and it was a gift, right? It was a gift through his dad, through his grandpa. Well, remember in his text messaging, he's texting his roommate / partner, and he's going, "Hey, I need to go back and get my grandpa's rifle."
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. He stays around the area till almost 1 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's breaking news, everybody. Okay. He stays in the area, and that's why he's spotted at uh, Dairy Queen at 6:30 or whatever it was in the evening. He's waiting for, in his mind, for things to calm down.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm thinking, man, this kid's not wrapped real tight. I mean, he can make rational decisions. He knows the difference between, right and wrong, and tell everybody for a legal position why the DA will probably prove that beyond, any other concept of, rationale. And that's probably why they'll throw the death penalty at him. The defendant has to know right and wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean, because if you're talking down to the possibility of some sort of mental health defense, if they're going to try to claim some sort of insanity, I'm not even quite sure what the insanity laws are in Utah, but if that's what they're going to try to argue, insanity from a criminal legal perspective has to do with not appreciating the consequences of your actions, not knowing that what you were doing was wrong, either morally or legally. And so many times what prosecutors will do will be to point towards, one, the planning, but also the attempts to evade capture, because somebody who's trying to evade capture is somebody that realizes what they did was criminally wrong and that they're going to be in quote unquote trouble for what they did. So the idea, and he took a lot of steps, by the way. We see how he ran from the scene. We see how he hid the weapon. You even pointed out on that video when he's jumping off of the roof, how he changes his gait when a car starts to go by. This is not a person who was so out of his own mind that just didn't care if he got caught or not. This is a person trying to evade capture. And then a person who was smart enough in their planning of it to your point, park his car a mile or so away.
Yep.
So that he could dispose of the weapon, walk casually to his car, and then he felt return casually and pick up the weapon. What he didn't realize was how he basically lit the world on fire, and law enforcement was going to be in that area for several square miles around the campus in complete shutdown. I was out in Utah as well recently. And I love speaking to my Uber drivers because they're boots on the ground people. They know what was going on. And they told me that it was so wild because literally the entire city was shut down. And the only thing roaming the streets were those weaponized SWAT vehicles, those what do they call them? Cats or something?
Yeah, Bearcat.
What, say that again?
The Bearcat.
Bearcats were just going up and down the streets when he was still on the loose looking for him. And they said it was like we were living in a war zone.
Yeah, and
he didn't realize that was going to happen afterwards. Say that again?
They're not delivering pizzas.
No, no, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and which is an interesting, point, because now we have this 2-year-old who has isolated himself into this secondary world. And it's almost like this secret life is going on, which we live 3 lives, public, private, and secret. Okay. And he's in this secret persona. His friends, his partners, everybody else is in this secret persona. And now there's evidence coming forward that the feds are deep into the Discord, and they're trying to pull out, okay, well, who knew? And at what time did they know, et cetera. And they may be rolling other people up, but was he in his mind, like you said a little bit ago, he was putting memes out there in some of the messaging. And, he's writing on one showcasing, talking about fascism. And then on the other thing, he's got the Mussolini song, et cetera, et cetera. But is this, is he living in a fantasy?
Yeah.
What's your take?
No, it's like he doesn't understand the gravity of what he's planning or what he did. Like it is true. It's almost like he's living in a video game world or something where it's just, this person that he just shot is just going to regenerate and we're going to go on playing the game, that it's not a real person. It's not a real thing. He's not committing murder. Like, there's no, even in the text exchange that he's having with his partner, there's no kind of appreciation of the magnitude of what he's done or remorse about what he's done. And in fact, the only regret that he shows is that he's not able to get the rifle back, and that he thought that he would grow to be an old man before he would have to ever confess that he did this. But there's no kind of understanding of he just committed an assassination and that the entire world is responding to this.
Yeah, I mean, what a great point. He says in one of those texts, yeah, I thought we were gonna, I was gonna keep this till I was old. I almost got away with it, right?
Yeah.
Almost, to your point, it's almost like this reset. Oh, game over, reset.
Right.
Let's start again. Yeah. Right. Awesome. So let's switch gears just for a second. And how do you think this plays into Luigi Mangione? How is that?
I mean,
go ahead.
No, I mean, the parallels are just incredibly disturbing. I mean, the first thing we could talk about is Luigi Mangione also etched things on the bullets that he used in that assassination, that his said deny, depose. I'm forgetting it. I'm sure somebody in the chat will remind me that he delay, deny, depose. And I think Mangione was far more obsessed with the message he was sending and far more obsessed with why he was doing what he was doing, because he had this entire manifesto that we now know about. He was obsessed with this idea, but again, it's young men who've become incredibly radicalized. And I think something to appreciate too is they think they're doing a good thing. They think that I don't think Mangione or Robinson view the idea that they really killed a person. I think that they viewed that they started the war, or they're participating in the war against an idea. Mangione, I believe, feels that he assassinated the healthcare industry, the corrupt and greedy healthcare industry, not a man with a mother and father and a wife and children. And the same thing goes for Robinson with Charlie Kirk. It's not a man, it's the conservative ideology or whatever he viewed him as. And they feel that they're part of some sort of righteous cause, that they're doing a good thing. I mean, you watch Mangione go to court. This kid's proud of himself. He's been in jail now for several months. And usually you see a person start the reality of it starts to set in, and they start to look unhealthy, and they start to look kind of beaten down, and they're realizing they're probably going to remain in prison for a very long time. He walks to court chin held high, very proud of what he's done, because he feels that he's done some good for the earth. And that is really disturbing and frightening. And this Rutgers report talks about how this is only going to get worse, and we're only starting to see it. We're starting to see the public response to it only be more and more accepting. I mean, a president or a presidential candidate who was prior to that a president, who is now our president, was nearly assassinated. And we all kind of reacted, and it was big news. And then it was like we pivoted and moved on. And I don't think we even realized the magnitude of what took place. And then you're starting to see more and more people just start to emulate that. And I think that I think the parallels that can be drawn from Mangione to Robinson are staggering. I mean, I would not be surprised if in their, they're starting to dump his computers and cell phones and everything else. And I would be shocked if we didn't find him researching Mangione in some sort of way.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a correlation there. At some point, there's going to be a crossover for sure. And if you're just joining with us, I have Josh Ritter with me tonight from Courtroom Confidential. If you've not seen his YouTube channel, again, I'm going to plug it 1,000 times. please go over there, Courtroom Confidential, hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and let's push him well over the top. He's not only a good friend, but he, as you can tell, he's an amazing legal mind, and I'm always grateful to call him a friend here. So, yeah, we were talking about a Rutgers recent study in July of this year where they came out and said approximately 38% of individuals interviewed and talked to during this study said it was somewhat justifiable to murder a political figure. And that's kind of a disturbing trend, which we're discussing here. And it kind of goes into where we're headed as a culture, because when murder becomes, acceptable to a population, I just want to remind everybody about, the historical aspects of World War II from 1933 to 1939. There was almost an eerie, depersonalization of a particular subset of human beings, and that was everything from the gamut from intellectuals, professors, educators, to religious individuals, to gay individuals. It just went right down the line. The Third Reich did not play favorites. If you fit into any one of those categories, you were gathered up, you were put on a train beginning in 1939, and sent off to a camp, and then subsequently exterminated. One of the things I've always been very interested in my studies when I was going to school is this historical context of how did they get there? How did 1/3 of a culture who voted for Adolf Hitler at the time, only 1/3 of the German people voted for him and put him into power. But how did those folks that lived around Dachau, that lived around, Auschwitz, and they saw the white smoke every single day, how did they not know that those were human beings being exterminated? And was there something in the culture that kind of desensitized them? And is that the course our society may be on? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Josh, when I say something like that?
It's such an excellent point. I don't think, to your point, that there was some sort of anomaly that just a generation of German people were born evil, and that those people out of the entire history just decided to do an incredibly awful thing or turned a blind eye to an incredibly awful thing. It is the frog in the water, right? It's this slow boil that nobody seems to notice, and it's incremental, and you could point towards, it could be motivated by political frustration, by financial, people not living the lives they hope to be living, and they start scapegoating other people and whatever else it is. But it happens gradually that you have good people who then either participate in incredible atrocity or turn a blind eye to incredible atrocity taking place. And how does that happen? I think that's such an excellent point, because to sit here right now and go, never going to happen again, never going to happen again in history, never could happen again. Well, I'm sure those people in Germany never thought it would happen. If you ask them 10 years prior to the rise of Hitler, would they ever find themselves with camps that are mass murdering people? And they would say, of course not. And I think that, listen, I'm not trying to catastrophize the times that we're living in now, but I think that when you see a study like this Rutgers study that talks about how people are starting to change their minds about murder, right, and starting to rationalize murder, those are probably those small little inflection points that do start to snowball into greater catastrophe.
Yeah, and to your point, if we look at that statistic, that number, there right now we're at that 1/3. We're at 31%, and 38% that say, yeah, do it. 31% are thinking about it.
Yeah,
they're still thinking about it, and that's what this study is so shocking. I mean, those are 1939 statistics. And we think about that, and then we think about, okay, well, where are we headed? Not only as a younger generation, but as an older generation, what's our responsibility? And it really does measure off then the power of our platforms that YouTube has blessed us with, to have a voice out there of, I hope, a voice of reason to say, things like this, of saying, look, we're much better than this in a society. And that means, the other silent voice out there, we need to all speak up and say, look, this has got to stop. We can't be cheering on, difference of opinions and then say, okay, well, the solution for that is I no longer want to talk, so I'm going to lift up, violence as the resolution, right? I mean, violence is never the answer, in my opinion, ever. Okay? I mean, you've been in the game for a long time. I spent 13 years standing over dead people, and that violence is never the answer, ever. Yeah. And when we see these statistics, we have to really stop and say, what is going on? What is going on? What do you think?
I think that it's one thing to know that a person like Luigi Mangione could develop and be created in the current culture that we have, where a young man who sounds like a very bright young man, by the way, with a bright future ahead of him, could have become so entrenched and radicalized and everything else that he decides to do this horrific thing and murder another person because he just doesn't like what that person stands for. But even more chilling and disturbing to me are the crowds of people standing outside of the courthouse every time that he appears in court. And those are people celebrating him. And those are people who are in love with him, and people who are unabashedly, by the way, they don't have a problem with their face being shown on camera championing a murderer. That is incredibly disturbing to me, because we're going to have crazy people every once in a while. We're going to have people who do commit assassinations and do horrible things. But I can't remember the last time that there were people cheering for Sirhan, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't remember somebody, cheering for David Chapman. I mean, we all completely agreed across the board, this is an atrocity and no one should be applauding that. And this man draws crowds there. That to me is something different that's happening now that has not happened in our history. And that is probably most disturbing to me.
I want to throw this one tweet up here from this guy named Matt Van Swell. This guy tweets out there, he goes, I've come to the horrifying realization that we are at a morality crossroads in the country. Where one side believes that murder for hate speech is morally good and canceling someone for celebrating murder is evil. And on the other side believes life is sacred, speech must be free, and celebrating bloodshed is true evil. If we can't even agree that murdering is wrong, we're not debating politics anymore. We're debating whether civilization itself survives at all. A society that flips good and evil like this cannot stand for long. What a powerful tweet.
Yeah.
He gets it. He gets it. And, I think this is a crossroads for us as our country and a free society, that we forget that, there are a lot of people that are good people, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on. I mean, defense attorneys, cops, how many friends do you have are cops? And, hundreds, I'll guarantee it. Okay. Because that's just how it should be, which leads us to the next segue real fast is Barry Morphew. Okay. This last week, Barry was out of jail. He posted bond. And those of you all of us who know, he is accused of allegedly killing his wife, Suzanne, in May of 2020. The judge in that case did not reduce his $3 million bail, but however, she changed the terms, which allowed him to post 10% in cash. But here's the scary part. Supporters raised the money, which allowed him to post a cash bond. What say you, Josh, on that one?
I did not know that. I did not know that supporters were the ones who supplied the money to him. That case, for a number of different reasons, is fascinating to me. And I say fascinating with all respect to the idea that a woman was murdered, and that's horrible. And I don't ever want to turn this into a spectator sport, but I think it's fascinating, the history of that case. For your viewers who are not all that familiar with it, they had originally arrested him and were going to prosecute him, and were on the eve of starting trial, and they dismissed the charges. And that ended up, in my view, being the best decision they ever made, because that was still a no body case at the time. After that original dismissal, and by the way, he got out and celebrated it and sued the law enforcement for arresting him in the first place. That's how much he felt like he got away with the whole thing. Then her body, her remains were discovered. I say remains because it was essentially bones when they found her. And they find in the marrow of her bones this tranquilizer that they can link to him. That is basically, he's the only person in the entire state who had access to that tranquilizer. So it became a much stronger case. So you're right. Here you've got a man who innocent until proven guilty, but I can also read evidence, and it looks very strong that he committed this crime. And I don't know what that means by supporters. I don't know if that means family, but if that means perfect strangers who are just happy to see somebody get out of jail because they're celebrating that is, again, a pretty disturbing time we're living through.
Yeah, they put an ankle bracelet on him. You think he's a flight risk?
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about the psychology of a person who feels like they may have gotten away with murder, right? He's heading to trial. They dismiss it. You think you got away with murder. I feel like most murderers would just slink into a little cave of oblivion and you'd never hear from them again. This guy's such a narcissist that he goes out and sues the prosecutors for even troubling him with the prosecution in the first place. That type of person is a flight risk, in my view.
Yeah, I had a caper years ago where a guy with an ankle bracelet put it on his dog over his neck.
Oh wow!
And so while he was out committing crimes, his dog was running around the yard, and they thought he was in the at his residence the whole time. And
kind of clever, actually, if you think about
it. You've got to give him an E for effort.
Yeah, right.
That's for sure. So Barry Morphew is out, everybody. He posted 10% of $3 million, which was $300,000 cash. And he was released from the Alamosa County Jail on Friday. So he's back into the community, and we'll see what direction that's going to take. So also, if you don't know Josh Ritter, good friend, over at Courtroom Confidential, go hit his YouTube channel up there, drive that like and those subscriptions way through the roof. I hope you just take off, man. I know you already are, but you're doing a Fox gig now too, right? Tell the audience about that.
Yeah. Fox News contacted me a few months back. They were trying to beef up their coverage for the Bryan Kohberger case, which we all know how that kind of pulled the rug out from everybody who was expecting that to go to trial. But then they've kept me on as a legal contributor. So it's been a wild ride. I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm their kind of criminal guy. Whenever there's a criminal case that comes up, they call me. I'm not a politics guy. I'm a criminal guy. But it's been exciting because they sent me up to Boise for Bryan Kohberger. Then they sent me to Utah for the Charlie Kirk assassination. And it's, every week I'm just waiting for some early morning phone call where they say, we want to put you on a plane to go do whatever. But it's fun. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, the good news is there will be a lot of job security. my brother.
Crime beat is never slows down.
Oh yeah, I mean, it just keeps changing no matter what it is. All right, so I give my guests the final word. Anything you want to tell the interview room audience here, and I know we had a lot of your folks over here, and thank you guys who came over from Courtroom Confidential. We're so grateful to Josh and his sweet wife who runs the show. She's actually the colonel behind the show here. But Josh, you get the last word. What do you want to tell the audience here?
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I'm appreciate all the kind words you said, and I bounce them right back at you. Big fans of you, big fans of the interview room, and I'm a big fan of you personally. I appreciate our friendship. I'll start with something serious. I will say that I'm usually the person that's like, don't get bent out of shape. Don't worry about it. Water finds its level. Things go in ebb and flows. And history works in big cycles. But I will say this Rutgers report and everything we've been talking about tonight, it really, to me, shows that we're living through scary times. But I feel that it is salvageable and there's something that can be done about it. And you make an excellent point that people with a platform should be taking the lead in these issues and saying, hey, can we all just agree as a baseline that murder is wrong? Something as simple as that, I think, should probably be agreed upon. But on a lighter note, I love that you invited me on here. I've been looking forward to this. Hello to everybody that doesn't know about me. And if I can shamelessly plug myself, please come over to Courtroom Confidential. We're trying over there to put out the best content that we can. And please come check it out and subscribe. And I hope that you enjoy.
Yeah, fantastic channel, fantastic people, as you can tell, and get over there and give it a go. So, Josh, thank you so much for coming here this evening. I'm going to spend a couple extra minutes and close this out, but I appreciate you very much, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Okay, aloha. Okay, there you have it, everybody. Mr. Josh Ritter himself from Courtroom Confidential. Man, what an amazing mind, legal mind, and as you can tell, what a great heart he has. And that's what it's always about here for the interview room, right? We're a victim, family-focused YouTube channel. We're for true crime, which is very difficult in today's world. I mean, but one of the great things that I think we can all agree upon is we're all in this together. And you know, as they say in Hawaii, and those of you who are new to my channel, I had the blessing of being raised as a young boy in Hawaii for many, many years. My father was in the Marine Corps. He spent 31 years in the Marine Corps. My mother was a Marine as well, and we traveled all around the world, but we settled in Hawaii, and then from there we moved to California, where as a young boy I started my career in law enforcement. But in Hawaii, what they say is be akamai, which means pay attention, you know, grab that aloha spirit, and just remember that each and every one of us together, we do this together. So thank you so much for being here this evening. If you've not had an opportunity to subscribe, not only to our channel, please do so. Hit that thumbs up and that like, and then of course get over to Josh's channel at Courtroom Confidential and do the same thing. So aloha, everybody. Until the next time, let's go to Hawaii.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts. Wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah. Make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away. We're taking away, yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down, we're going away. Yeah, we're going away, you and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.